Welcome back, guys. I'm Zell, and today we're looking at the Spyderco Calypso. The Spyderco Calypso. Now, this was a 2013 sprint run from Spyderco. The original Calypso was from the mid-90s, and then in 2013 they did a sprint run of this model. And there may have been some other sprint runs out there, but I'm not sure about that. So what we get here is our G10 handles, and we have a recessed pivot, pinned together, no detent. Everything is smooth across the back, very smooth and well put together. Whenever we roll it around here, we got our standard 3-screw Spyderco pocket clip. It is tip up, tip down, left or right, whatever you choose. And we have a lanyard hole. It is not a tubed lanyard hole, but it is there, and our screw for the pivot is recessed as well. And whenever we roll around the top, blade is really well centered. It's just a really good looking gentleman's folder, and it's big. Closed length of 5.22 inches. Handle thickness is really skinny or svelte at 0.35. Closed height at about just less than 1.6. So, you know, it's a pretty big knife. It's not terribly tall for a Spyderco, but everywhere else it's pretty big. And while we're talking about that, let's get some other Spydercos out here and have a look. Now, here we have it with a Spyderco Police. So it's in the same league size-wise with the Spyderco Police. Slightly smaller. And we have a Spyderco Military, slightly smaller than a Military too. But if the blade was a little taller, it wouldn't look. It looks a lot smaller in there, but it really isn't. Anyhow, and a Spyderco Delica. Now the Delica is probably the closest in actual size. The blade length here is a little longer. And while we're at it, I said Delica here, didn't I? Correction, Endura. There is a Delica. So it's considerably bigger than the Delica. And just for fun, we'll throw in our Rat Model 1. So it's every bit as big as a Rat Model 1 with a longer blade and a longer handle. Slightly bigger than an Endura. It's just a big knife. And we'll throw our Levi's out here and see what it looks like in the pocket. Now, in the pocket, it does not sit down terribly deep. And for me, this was a problem. I don't ever carry this knife. And since it belongs to Todd Knife and Tool, we're going to send it back to him, and he can carry it if he wants to. But the knife sticks out, and it's got that weird shape that for whatever reason, because of the way it lays in the pocket in my thigh, or however goofy I am, or whatever it is, it runs into things. And I don't like that. Plus, we have the big, heavy Spyderco pocket clip with a bunch of rays there on the end of it, which can cause it to get caught on things. So, I'm not a fan of the pocket clip on this. Not a fan of how deep it carries. Moving on along to the blade, what we have here is one big old chunk of VG10. Blade length is 3.93 with an edge length of 3.6 and a stock thickness of 0.12, right around 3 millimeter. So it is a big long blade. And it's full flat ground, you know, normal Spyderco fare here, full flat ground VG10, a little smoother ground than most of their blades. It's been taken up to a higher grit on the grinding wheel. And we do have some full-length swedges. Get this up here where we can see it. See the swedge down there, down the top of the blade? That happens on both sides, and that is very nice. Very nice. Looks good. But if you also notice while we're up here, no jimping back here. No thumb ramp jimping at all. But from there you can kind of see our swedge start. That part of it is very nice. And stock edge whenever you first get one of these, which I don't guess anybody will be getting a brand new one, but it's normal Spyderco fare. It's in pretty darn good shape. I just prefer, of course, to have a little bit finer edge on my knives, and since this one's going back to Todd Knife and Tool, and he indicated that he actually uses a knife, we put a good, nice, fine edge on it. And from here, we're going to go to our pause and read card, and I'll be back with you here in a moment. Alright, we have a standard Spyderco pivot. We did look at the recesses there. I really like that. Our later models of the Cali series don't have that, and it somewhat bothers me to look down the knife and have the pivot screw sticking out on both sides. That's, I don't know, looks unfinished to me. But anyhow, recessed on both sides, well done there. And we have our standard mid-back lock, and it doesn't have the detent in it. As I've said before, I don't think that's a big deal. And this being more of a gentleman's folder, I don't think it's a big deal at all. Now, it is very short. It is shorter than even your Endura. There you get a look at there. But it's placed pretty well, and should do, as a gentleman's folder, it should be fine. Now, Ergonomics. This is a big old knife, guys, but it's standard Spyderco fare for a big old knife. We have this forward finger choil with 0 jimping in it, and just like on many Spydercos, it's there. It works extremely well. Have this thumb ramp, no jimping there either, but it works fine. And you have to remember, this is not a tactical knife. This is a gentleman's folder, so it's not designed to be super grippy everywhere. The G10 itself is fairly grippy, and as we usually do, you wrap your hands around your knife, and on this one, with my medium-large hands, I mean, you could have some big old meat hooks with this knife and be just fine. And you lay your hand in it, and everything feels pretty good. It's a bit thin this way, but it's a gents folder, remember. It's not some tactical knife or hard use knife. And overall, it's very good ergonomically. Now, the action on this knife is not broke in enough to be doing Spidey flicks and all that kind of stuff with, but the thumb hole is well placed, opens easily. Whenever it gets to the level of Spidey flicks and whatnot, it's in a very good place, as always on a Spyderco. And it's just a very nice knife, guys. The only thing that I'm going to kind of ding it on is being pinned together. I'm not a fan of that, but I can kind of understand Spyderco's stance here. This is supposed to be a gentleman's folder. It's not tactical. It's not a hard use knife, so it's probably never going to come apart or need to come apart. Alright guys, the Calypso has been discontinued for a while. I've heard that the sprint run that this brown G10 was part of was a small sprint run. I don't know for sure. You have to ask Spyderco and get that information from them. But, it's a great knife, but it's big for a gentleman's folder. And whenever you stick it in your pocket, you have quite a bit of knife sticking out, and it's that odd shape that gets caught on everything. So it's not a knife that I want to carry. If it was a little deeper carry, yeah, it'd probably be on my list, because everything else is really smooth, works really well. But in the Spyderco line, it doesn't really hurt me that they're not making it anymore, because we have so many other Spydercos that fit the same spot. We have the Spyderco Police, we have the Spyderco Military, we have the various Enduras. They all fit the same kind of bill that this one does, with a little more hard use and a little more tactical rolled into those knives. And that's okay for most of us. But anyhow, if you can get your hands on a Calypso, I doubt you can find one for 160 bucks anymore, but if you can get your hands on one, it is one heck of a nice knife. And, you know, it may be in that collector group of knives from Spyderco. I'm not sure. I haven't looked up to see what a new one of these would cost, but I bet it's one that the collectors are kind of keen on having. Anyhow, guys, I really appreciate you stopping by to hang out with me for a few minutes and talk about an oldie but a goodie. And this one is also from Todd Knife and Tool. I told you we were going to be going through a lot of his knives over the next few weeks, and this is another one. So, if you've been watching the channel, you know the deal. I'm just about done getting this one ready to go. And as soon as I am, we're going to have a pretty big giveaway, and this knife will be part of it. So you have to subscribe over at Todd Knife and Tool to be part of that giveaway. All that information is down in the description. So get over there and get it taken care of, and you have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.